Hi, Ash. Welcome to What's Your Next podcast.
Hi, Laura. How's it going?
So happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Ash Perez. I am a writer and a producer, and I'm here to talk about my first novel, which is called Speak Now. It's a rom-com that's out wherever you get your audiobooks.
I love this. So this is an audio first novel, like an audio only. It's actually a movie in your ears. It has Jennifer Malone as one of the narrators. It has sound effects. It's just a movie in your ears. So I'm
Mhm.
excited to chat with you about the audiobook, but talk to us about your experience as a reader to getting to write this project. Were you, because it's mostly
Yeah.
dialogue. So also like when you do screenwriting or movies, what led you to write this project?
Yeah, I think I love the way you categorize it as a movie in your ears because that is definitely the goal. And I think it's modeled most closely after the radio plays of the 1920s, where War of the Worlds, I don't know, I'm sure they had a lot of soap operas and rom-coms that were kind of lost to times, but War of the World is the more famous of those examples.
Yeah.
I came to writing this kind of in a roundabout way. I have always been a big reader and a writer and a lover of the written word, the pathway. So I, for the last like 6 years now, have been a screenwriter, mainly writing in television, but also writing some film stuff that hasn't been published yet. But I have spent most of my time in dialogue in this format, with the big caveat of having a visual part to that medium. So actually, this came about kind of as a result of the writer's strike, which happened in 2023. My editor, Lara Blackman, reached out to me from Simon and Schuster because she was very smartly looking to find TV writers who maybe couldn't work in their current medium because they could work for writing an audiobook. And she asked me if there were any formats that I thought or ideas that I had that would be good for an audio first format. And it just so happened that I had a screenplay that was a rom-com that I had been working on for a while that kind of had not gone anywhere in the traditional Hollywood system that was like perfect for this. It was a little bit of a roundabout way to end up kind of blending my skills and careers and my passion, which have always been rom-coms, but something that I haven't gotten to express in my writing as much.
Yeah, I love the fact that this is a rom-com that has the treatment of full audio, full cast audio, has the sound effects of specific things. As someone who loves rom-coms, who grew up in the 90s and 2000s, so the golden era of with rom-coms, it feels like I want this as a movie that I get to experience. But I love consuming romance and audio because it gives you company and it gives you a quiet, regardless of your nervous system.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be okay no matter what. I love this idea of having the story and actually coming as an audio first. Audio is exploding this time around. But one of the things that resonated from your experiences came from a place of uncertainty. The writer's strike was happening, Hollywood ended a crossroads. It's not easy, and a lot of things are not getting original content is not getting created, it's doing the build to IP route, it's coming in, and so coming from that space and I'm glad you were pitched at that time. You're like, hey, there's another medium that you can make some money while they're actually in the crossroads.
Mhm. It's funny too because the irony now that it exists, even though it was originally a screenplay, the interest in it as a screenplay is so much higher, even though it's still it's IP, but it's my own IP, just kind of repackaged. And it's been a really interesting process now I'm working on the screenplay version now and trying to re-add those elements that I had changed for the audiobook that would only work in audio back into video medium. But I, like you, also grew up in the 90s and early 2000s and am deeply influenced by all of those rom-coms. I mean, Nora Ephron is my hero.
Yeah.
And so I feel like Speak Now was very deeply, if inadvertently, influenced by that. And in some ways, it feels really right and really cool that I was able to kind of mix both of those two things together. I always wanted to direct rom-coms, but a pretty big job directing a rom-com for a film. There's 300 crew members, a lot of money, and a lot of things are depending on you. this was a really cool way to get to kind of test my capabilities, because I did co-direct this whole production as well as a director without having to be restricted by budget and those kinds of things.
Oh my gosh, I love this. And honestly, let's Speak Now. Let's get the listeners to know what it is
Yeah.
why. So Speak Now is a chef and basically a mixer working at a boutique hotel, leading a restaurant, and her former best friend from high school comes back and she gets engaged. They have something happen in the past, and we have a potential second chance romance coming together. It's a queer sapphic romance. We get the joys of what it feels like a Nancy Meyers movie of Big Sur and kitchen and cooking, and then at the same time the angst of the romance and the idea of will they one day and other parties are involved. Talk to us about anything else that I missed about the story.
No, that was a perfect summary. I can tell that we exist in the same reference space, because it's like, yeah, it's the Nancy Meyers kitchen, the hiking, the kind of outdoors, that second chance romance. You nailed all of it.
Yes. So talk to us about the experience of casting, because you were directing. So what was the experience of producing an audiobook? How different is it from actually producing a movie? From your experience or TV, this process?
So in many ways, in many ways, it was very similar and then different in other ways. I was very lucky to work with my co-director and producer, Allison Light, who is very skilled in this new and burgeoning kind of audio, because we've had basically audiobooks for a long time, which are strict readings of the text. And some of them have started to have maybe sound effects or some light music background, but they're still just text that's being read, and one, maybe two narrators, a male and female narrators, reading the different parts. This is really much more like a movie where you have multiple actors and big actors working specifically on their parts and getting that mix together. What's different about it, though, is where the visual element would usually be like, what do these two look like together? What is their chemistry? What's their physical chemistry? All of it is down to audio. And so there were a lot of interesting things that I learned, even just about my producer brought me, based on the character descriptions that I had written and on the script, a bunch of different casting ideas, but had also kind of divided it by voice tonality, had pointed out to me, especially with sapphic or same-sex romances, because their voices could be very similar. Ideally, we would have one in a range that's lower, one in a range that's higher, so that the reader isn't confused as to who's speaking. Again, because you're not, with strictly dialogue, you don't have narrators saying Genevieve said or Alex. So there needs to be clarity of who's talking and where. And I think that really brought my background as a screenwriter into light and felt like a big skill to be able to bring to this project. And I was really happy too, because it is my first novel. And so I was nervous about being able to accomplish that, but because the format was very much in a format that I understood, that part was easy. And then it was just a matter of finessing the story.
Yeah, I think as a format, I think we're getting more used to in the fantasy and the world building world, graphic audios. This is a normal thing. But I think I really love that we're setting the tone that romance deserves audio movies too. We deserve it. We deserve the experience. So we're seeing that romance is getting that space, and I'm so excited to have this book that is queer, is sapphic. It's a rom-com. It has the will do, won't do, what's gonna happen, tension, conflict. And it's the tie ends with a happily ever after, which we love. Yeah. We get the rom-com, and hopefully it will be a movie, and you get to experience it in multiple formats. But this is so exciting. So talk to us about the rom-coms that you actually brought, that you were like, you know, these are seminal. You talk about Nora Ephron, even Nancy Meyer, but are there any rom-coms that you're like, definitely, this is my comfort movie? We're getting double by that in 2 weeks, this week, actually.
Yes. For me, because so many of the romances and rom-coms that I watched in the 2000s, they're very PG-13.
Yes.
They end in a kiss, or maybe they sleep together, but the camera pans away type of thing. And that was the type of rom-com that I was trying to achieve. This is you can listen to this book Speak Now is much more in the genre of the movies that I watched growing up. I think the two big ones that influenced this project specifically because of the theme was Wedding Planner, which is one of the movies I've seen the most in my life. Whenever I love to watch that movie. It really comforts me. I think that Matthew McConaughey and J-Lo have unparalleled chemistry. And then My Best Friend's Wedding, which was not quite the standard because I don't actually think it's a rom-com and that the people that end up together are not the ones that I want that to end up together. But both of them also follow this wedding structure, which as a writer is great because it gives you these key moments and it gives you a ticking clock of knowing what you're headed towards. You're headed towards a wedding. So like in those movies of classic scenes where they're doing the bachelorette party or they're doing the rehearsal dinner or they're doing those kinds of things. I think or listeners will recognize some of those parts of the structure in there.
Yes, you share some of my favorite rom-coms. Best Friend's Wedding, the singing segment where they talk about maybe
Yes.
a little prayer party, you know? That's a classic. And the wedding planner, the shoe, and it's cute. It's lovely. And then you know they're not supposed to be together, but we're rooting for them. So
Yes. Yes, very much.
awesome. Let's talk about your reading life. What kind of books do you tend to read? Because this is a book podcast, so we like to talk about books and recommendations.
Yeah. I mean, it's been interesting. As a young reader, I definitely think Harry Potter, like many millennials, was what really launched me into reading voraciously. Before that, I loved the Scholastic Book Fair like anyone else. And I loved Babysitter's Club and the Hardy Boys and just these stories about children having their own agency. I love their sense of agency. I also loved all the series of unfortunate events books. I loved anything that was like a big series that I could knock out. There was something about that sense of accomplishment that was really fun. And then I think I fell off for a while from fiction reading because as an adult, I felt the need to be productive and read so many nonfiction self-help books, some of which authors like Young Pueblo, who I love, but others that were just sheerly to try and constantly better myself. And I think it was informative, but it also took away a lot of the joy of reading. And I forgot how fun reading is and how fun fiction is. And so just recently, it was actually Lemony Snicket that got me back into reading as an adult because Lemony Snicket had a novella, a smaller book that I think it was called Poison for Breakfast, which was like a weird little tale that's very Snicket-esque, but written for adults. And it also reminded me that, I can just read short novellas too. Because as an adult, I also felt like, I don't know, I just had this shame and guilt of if I'm not reading everything quickly or if I'm not reading these massive tomes that are critically acclaimed, then it's not valuable or I'm not doing reading right. I realized, that's not what I read as a kid. Reading is just a way to go into another person's mind and live in this world for a while. And so that got me into reading a lot of different novellas. I've been reading Joyce Carol Oates and I've been reading Martha Wells, the Murderbot series.
So good.
Oh,
From the
good.
audio.
Which one?
Have you done the audio?
Yes. I've done the audio for some of them. And the audio, the narrator of the Murderbot series, Kevin R. Free, is actually one of the voices in Speak Now. So yeah, he plays Luke in Speak Now. So that was another cool thing of not only getting to work with big film actors like Jenna Malone and Arian Mandy and Benjamin Norris, but getting to work with the top tier of the audiobook world, which anyone who listens to audiobooks knows that we all get attached to audiobook narrators. If you like an audiobook narrator and you see that they narrate something else, you're like, okay, this will be good. I'm like good with how they narrate. Yeah. So I've really been reading, again, just fiction, reintroducing myself to books that I read in childhood and rereading with my girlfriend right now, The Phantom Tollbooth. It was one of her favorite books and I'd never read it. And then also I am purposefully trying to read not just in my genre. So I love rom-com and I love listening to rom-coms, same as you, because it regulates me. I know it's going to end happy. I love Casey McQuiston and all of those books, Red, White, Royal Blue. No, but I love all those rom-com books I kind of just breeze through. But I have been having a lot of fun reading outside of my preferred
Mhm.
genre because it also gives me ideas as a writer of there are elements that you can take from, say, a sci-fi or a fantasy that can make a rom-com more interesting. And I'm also just very interested in blending genres. So I'm already, do we do a space audio rom-com next? Queer audio rom-com?
Yeah, it's a space opera. Those
Yes.
are lovely. I too found myself, I'm a millennial myself, and I found myself reading a lot of self-help books and productivity and trying to be productive. And the irony is that once I discovered that I can read fiction and it can actually be a good escape, and then I was like, holy shit, my world opened up. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? And as good millennial, I try to monetize it as one does in the
Yes.
podcast.
Twice.
But it really comes down to there's something to be said about reading across genre, not having so you have to read one genre and this is it. Just be a multi-passionate, just try out what works. And sometimes some books work, sometimes some books don't work. Sometimes short books are great. There's something to be said about good novella can get you out of a funk.
Yes. As a refresher or just palate cleanser.
Yeah.
I also had so much shame about not finishing books. And I love that Goodreads recently added the did not finish feature, which I think, what's the other popular one?
Storygraph.
Storygraph has had that feature. But it's nice to just be like, oh yeah, it's also okay to put down a book in the same way that if you're watching a TV show and it's not for you, you can put it down. And something that's been fun as a millennial too, especially in this economy, has been going to the library and just searching for books, and you get that dopamine rush without having to get that same
Having to spend a lot of money.
a
But
lot of money.
Right.
Exactly.
Supporting the community. So it helps
Yes.
the readers. It just goes
Yes.
out as a win-win. And authors are getting paid.
I'm very happy, and I've been very encouraging of anybody who's wanting to listen to Speak Now at your library. If they don't have a copy yet, almost every library has a system that you can just submit to your librarian to purchase a book. A lot of times there'll be references of where has this book been referenced. We were reviewed by Kirkus, which is a big reviewer for that librarians use, so you can reference that. And it's been cool actually to see as the amount of people, your library is paying attention to you, as the amount of people who have requested, even in LA, Speak Now, I've watched the number of copies continue to go up that the library has purchased. And I think reading is more accessible than it's ever been. Or if you're a Spotify premium user, you have audiobooks included, like 11 hours for free. So you can access Speak Now in a lot of ways. And I think that's what was really exciting for me too, is I wanted it to be something that was very accessible to people.
It is. We love libraries. We love ways to consume books. There's a way to consume them, and you can finish them. It can be the right time. It can be some other time. You can put it down. You can take a break. You can go back to it. There's no rules. This is not homework.
And I think so many millennials were trained to be productive or monetize, like you've said. And it's no, reading is just a hobby. And it's really helped me recently get off my phone and my phone usage at night. I found like most people, just my phone is so draining and the algorithm is awful and it makes the world seem so much worse. But what we're all craving is story at the core of it. And we watch and scroll through these videos as we want story. And it's to be reading at night before I go to bed. It allows me that. It keeps my brain functioning. And then also big benefit has been that I don't stay up later at night than I need to, because you can be on your phone because of the light until 4 a.m., even if you don't want to be. But when you're reading a book, once you've read the same sentence 6 times, you're like, time to go to bed. You don't stay up until 4 a.m. looking at that same sentence. And so I've actually really, really, really enjoyed how reading has been reincorporated into my adult life.
Thank you for sharing some of these tips, because I think it's someone who is maybe new to reading, or maybe someone who took a break from it. I think these are really helpful tips too, from not a beginner point, but just someone rediscovering this hobby and rediscovering that it can actually improve your sleep. It can improve your community aspect. You can have something to talk to your friends about it.
Yeah.
You can make friends. So there's plenty of things, plenty of benefits from reading. And so listeners, you can buy Speak Now. You can listen to it on Spotify. You can listen to it. You can request it from your library. Even if you already have read it and you bought it, request it from your library. So have another option to help other readers discover Speak Now. And tell us where we can find you online.
You can find me online on at ashperez.com, and that links to everything else. I wrote a previous book called Read This for Inspiration. That's a nonfiction book. And any other work that I've done, you can find there. But thank you all so much for listening and watching. And I hope you have as much fun listening to Speak Now as I had working.
Thank you, Ash, for being on the show.
Thanks for listening to the What to Read Next. For more book lists, cozy reads, and library tips, visit the whattoreadnextblog.com. Your next great read might be waiting there.